Alrighty, we are live. Hello, everyone. Just gonna check some settings really quick. Make sure we are good. Everything looks good. Audio, video. If there's any buffering, as always, let me know. But hello, welcome you guys to a special Saturday edition of the live Q&As. Hi there. Uh, oh, oh no, I'm probably gonna butcher the pronunciation of your name. I'm so sorry. Dea? Hello, Alexandria. Always appreciate your time to chat about the law. Oh, of course. This is my favorite time. I love coming here. Nipendia, Gordana, Rose, hello and welcome. I don't know if you've had a chance to check, but you should check your email when you can. Tanya, hello. Colonel Moonlight, Belwick. Yay. Welcome, you guys. Welcome. I'm excited. We're going to dive in here in just a moment. I like to give it a few seconds, 30 seconds or so, to let people get notified, come on in, get comfy, and we'll dive into some Q&As for the week. Hello, May. Good evening from Spain. Good evening. Good evening. I know it's getting a little bit late over there for you guys. I apologize. I know that, throw off the times this week. I usually don't come on this late in the afternoon. I try to make it earlier for my European friends, but because I'm going to be unavailable tomorrow, figured we'll make it do and come on and enjoy the Saturday together. Hello, Peter. JT, hi. Yay, I'm noticing some of my favorites. Fantastic. Hi, Mimi. Hi, Luisa. Hello, gorgeous queen. I love that name. David, hello. You made it. Yay, welcome. I am excited to dive in. Thank you for doing these lives. I look forward to them every week. I love seeing all the familiar names in the chat. I feel like I am among friends. Oh, same, April. Big same. Yes, I look forward to them too. Thank you for being here. I'm from Germany, but a night owl, so this is perfect for me. I mean, good. I'm glad to hear it. I very much used to be a night owl, so I completely understand how that goes. And if this happened to work better for some people this week, then that is wonderful. Izzy Boo from New Zealand. Wow. Good morning? Good morning. Good. I'm not sure what time of the day it is in New Zealand, but I imagine it's got to be pretty weird hour. Thank you for being here. All right, let's go ahead and jump in. I know we've already got a couple of questions come through. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm not sure how many people we're going to have joining today, since I know, again, we're not doing our usual Sundays this week. My apologies for that. We'll be unavailable tomorrow, so figure we can make do for today. But with that said, thank you again so much for being here, you guys. I love seeing familiar names and new names, of course. Welcome if you are new here, if this is your first time. We'd just like to hang out and talk about the law, really. And I want to answer your guys' questions, because more than anything, I want all of you to have a deeper understanding of all of this, the law of assumption, and how we go about consciously manifesting the world around us. So with that said, just a couple quick things before we jump in. I've got resources down below in the description box for anybody who is interested in learning more about some of the programs that I offer, whether it be coaching or the workshops and courses that I have. There is currently a waitlist for one-on-one coaching, but that link to join the waitlist is down below, as well as information about my group coaching program and all of that. So be sure to check that out. And without further ado, settings still look good. Yeah, let's go ahead and dive on in once I get some caffeine. Very important. Oh, so many hearts. How are the fluffy little butt heads? Are you talking about the kitties? The kittens? The fluffy little butt heads? They are good. They are rambunctious. I assume that's what you're talking about. Since I am a foster mama, I usually always have foster mom and cat. There's lots of animals in this house, but they are all good. They're doing really good. Da, da, da. Good question from Alexandria. Missy, it feels like there's so many ways to go about changing your self concept. Hmm. Can you recommend a good way to start without getting so overwhelmed? Yes, absolutely. And I recorded a video on this topic um, a little not too long back. It still needs to be edited, but I did want to make sure to cover this topic because I know that the feeling of overwhelm is huge, especially because there's so much information out there. Um, as the law of assumption is gaining traction and popularity, there's just more and more and more, and it seems like a vast, never-ending resource of information out there. So it's easy to get overwhelmed. I call it analysis paralysis. And I guess a good way to start, if it feels like you don't know what to start to put into practice, I mean, the first thing that I would recommend doing is for even just a couple of days, just observe what you are thinking, feeling, reacting. Get familiar with the state of consciousness that perhaps the dominant state of consciousness that you have been occupying, um, and not in a way that's like policing our thoughts. We don't want to be critical in this time. We don't want to be judgmental, but just to get an idea of where we typically dwell in consciousness, right? So just spending even a couple of days just doing that, just pure observation for the sake of understanding, right? And then we can start to get a better idea of the state that we occupy most often versus where we want to be. And that's going to kind of cue you in to areas that we want to adjust, areas that we want to begin to imagine something differently. As far as techniques are concerned, it really is an experimentation, right? We want to practice and play around with different techniques, see what feels most comfortable for us, see what comes most naturally for us, because this is a very natural process. I mean, manifestation is the most natural thing in the world. It's something that we're always doing. And so, play around with different techniques, different times of the day. Um, meditation, meditation, even a couple of minutes a day of just focused attention or mindfulness meditation is going to start doing wonders for the monkey mind, the mind that seems to always want to ruminate and ruminate. Yeah, things like that. So just starting with observation, starting with getting familiar with different techniques and how you respond to them, and begin to just implement meditation in your day to day, because that is going to help tremendously with your imaginal acts, with the ability to observe more objectively where you're dwelling and things like that. So I know that may have been a lot, but basically, observation, experimentation, and meditation is a really good place to begin. And you're going to be naturally led to what needs to be adjusted, what needs to be changed. So I hope that helps, and I hope that wasn't too much. To help me visualize, if I desire a text from SP, I would write the text and send it to myself. Am I giving myself what I'm manifesting without actually receiving the text from SP? Weird question. No, not a weird question at all. For the sake of practice with visualization, I'm assuming that is one way you can go about doing it. If it's from the place of wanting to strengthen that imagination muscle and specifically visualizing this message, you can absolutely use that as a prop, so to speak. if that's something that feels helpful for you. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, visualization may not come naturally and effortlessly to everyone. So it is a good idea to practice using props, using objects, and just start to form that image in your mind. Now, to be clear, we don't have to visualize in order to manifest, but if it's something that you want to strengthen, absolutely, you can do something like that. Yes, you called your fosters the cutest little buttheads. That's right. That's right, Rose. They are the cutest little buttheads. They're so rambunctious. They're at that perfect age where they just wanna, like, pounce on everything. They think they're little tigers. It's so cute. I have a question. Can you go into detail the difference between affirmations and inner conversations? Thanks. Absolutely. Yeah, that's actually a really good question. So, affirmations are a statement that we're, declaring in present tense. So it's sort of a declaration, right? It's a very like affirmative statement. I am loved, I am chosen, I am confident, I am beautiful, I everything always works out for me. It's very like concrete, definitive statements that imply what we desire to experience. Inner conversations are things that naturally take place within us. Like we're always throughout the day to day entertaining inner conversations, whether that's the narration in our minds, like we're kind of narrating the life around us, or conversations that we're having with others in imagination. But it's already something that we're subconsciously doing all the time. You can think of inner conversations as more of like a flowing dialogue, and affirmations as more concrete, definitive statements, if that makes sense. Um, yeah, both can be incredible helpful, and sometimes we naturally have affirmations that pop up for us. It's typically it can be things that we don't want, but the inner conversations are more of that natural flowing dialogue, and affirmations are just definitive statements. Hi from Switzerland. Hello. Da, da, da. Hello, Mohammed. I am doing fantastic. I hope you are as well. Thank you for being here. Mystical has a really good question. How come we can visualize and manifest off of one time, but they also say to make our beliefs dominant? Is dominant beliefs the sure way? Why do one time things manifest if they aren't a belief? Yeah, good question. Yeah, we can absolutely manifest something that is not a belief that we carry. Like it's we can have temporary changes in mood and temporary changes in consciousness. Like we all have a dominant state based on the dominant beliefs and assumptions we hold, but we can also move into different states, right? Like we're not only occupying the dominant state of consciousness. Like for example, if I suffer from depression or anxiety, I can still have good days periodically. It's not that I don't ever have a good moment. It's just, more often than not, I'm in the state of feeling anxious and fearful and depressed. Um, so we're able to see temporary change in our inner world, just like we can see temporary change in our outer world. So a subconscious impression will result in 3D expression, right? It can be for one-off things, but where the dominant beliefs come in and why that's important is that that's what we're always going to gravitate towards. right? We're gonna be, I guess, for maintaining a manifestation or consistently manifesting from a new place of being is so important because we don't want to just gravitate back to that old story. Neville used to talk about this too. He would say, this isn't just about a temporary change in mood, but a transformation of self. Right? He was very clear that the aim should be, the death to the old self so we can be born anew. And that's really what he meant. He was talking about the the core beliefs and assumptions that we hold. With those changed, we'll be naturally, subconsciously, and automatically creating from a new place of being. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. Yeah, we can manifest things opposite of our general beliefs, but to maintain those manifestations, we want to make sure that the core beliefs and assumptions line up with what we want to experience. Is it bad that lately I've been daydreaming about my SP's family apologizing? And also SP. I don't know where these scenes come from in my head during the day and why I enjoy them. Is that lack? That's a good question. And I mean, I wouldn't say that it's a bad thing. No. Um, if you're noticing scenes coming up for you that are, apologies, that points to, you know, there's likely still feelings of hurt, feelings of, you know, wanting to be vindicated, wanting to feel, yeah, I mean, you feel like these people have done something to hurt you, and you want to feel, what's that word I'm looking for? Damn it, vindication is basically it, and there's nothing inherently wrong with that. It's a completely natural human emotion. Um, if that being the case, yeah, we want to observe and confirm, like, how am I feeling about the situation? How am I feeling about, like, is this still, resentment or anger or frustration towards SP and the family? And if that's the case, then I perhaps want to revise that. Perhaps I want to imagine, these outcomes that happen that were not ideal, perhaps changing those so that, instead these memories are ones that were ideal, and to release ourselves from that feeling of any kind of resentment or feeling like you were wronged in any way. And this is not to give anyone outside of you a pass. This is to help you move into a state where you can manifest ultimately what you want, because it's very difficult to try to manifest an ideal outcome if we are harboring a sense of, hurt or frustration or anything like that. So, I would just, those kinds of things are feedback. The unconscious thoughts and images and 3D stuff happening around you, it's all feedback letting you know what state you're dominantly dwelling in. So, if that being the case, you can respond accordingly. You can revise as needed. I hope that makes sense. Oh, thank you, Mari. Let me see. I lost my spot. Sorry, guys. One moment. Where did my spot go? Missy, I have been in conviction. I know it has to show up, but I know a story. It's been 5 months. I'm not sure how to get from here to manifest it. I'm powerful. I want my stuff in 3D, not just 4D. Yeah, and that's an understandable feeling, and I'm I could speak for most people that we've we've been there. The frustration that starts to build as more time goes on. It's been X amount of time. Why is it not here yet? I've been living in the end. I've been doing all the things I'm supposed to be doing. But what we want to remember, and this can be easy to forget because we are so conditioned to linear time, is that each moment to moment, what we are observing, where we are dwelling, is what is creating the moment or moments to come. So if I'm here saying it's been 5 months, it's been 6 months, it's been this, then each moment to moment, what am I aware of? I'm aware of separation. I'm aware of I don't have it. It's been X amount of time. Time doesn't exist. It feels very real. It feels very solidly real, but if like we want to if we're finding ourselves with those feelings of it's been X amount of time, take that as a cue that, we're kind of going back to that old linear self, like that old linear sense of time, and that in each moment to moment is a brand new state. It's a brand new slate. And we do not want to be continuing to impress. It's been this time, it's been this much time, it's been this much time in each of these brand new slates, if that makes sense. So just take that as a cue when you start to notice those feelings come up, the frustrations come up. I want to redirect, right? I'm kind of moving back into this old story. Time for me to redirect. Again, I know it's really easy to, detach ourselves from this idea of linear time, but everything exists right now. So we want to cease telling ourselves the stories that we do not want. Greetings from Romania. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Oh, thank you, Millie. Thank you. Misty, could you talk more about worlds within worlds sometime? Absolutely, absolutely. I have another video recorded about that. And I guess one of the things that I do go over in that recording, in that video that's going to be coming up, is the importance of the hypnagogic state when it comes to specifically experiencing different worlds, lucid dreaming, things like that, the hypnagogic state. And I go into much more detail in that video. But yes, I do have more content coming out about that. Absolutely. Works better for me as, oh, okay, Izzy Boo. Oh, I'm glad this worked out better. Yay. Why do we sometimes manifest the opposite? Good question. We manifest the opposite, typically speaking, due to our double-mindedness. Because we're always manifesting who we are, who we believe ourselves to be. I mean, again, not every single time. It's possible for us to manifest things as like a one-off, but typically speaking, we're manifesting from the place of like what we believe, what we assume, like not what we want, right? So if we're manifesting the opposite of what we're intending, that's kind of a cue for us, like really observe your mental diet. Like, where are we living in the day to day? Where are we dwelling in the day to day? Are we imagining this lovely place? Are we living from the end? Are we feeling that sense of satisfaction and relief? Or are we feeling mostly the sense of fear, apprehension, confusion, uncertainty, things like that? Because it's the double-mindedness. Yeah. However, regardless of whatever is manifested, even the opposite of what you want, you always have the power to change that. You always have the power to change it. It ultimately cannot stop you from obtaining what you truly desire. Nothing can. I reached the Sabbath and I lost the feeling of lack. But sometimes I also feel like I don't want my desire anymore, as if I want to move on from it and completely and not experience it. Is this normal? Yeah, it is. It is. And I get this question quite a bit about the Sabbath and the feeling of like not having that same sort of desire or drive for it. The feeling of like, okay, it's time to move on now. That's normal. And that happens when we are no longer dwelling in that place of lack, right? Um, because the Sabbath is the state of rest. It's the period of rest once something has been impressed, and there's nothing left to do except to move on to something else, right? That's when we can put our attention on other things that we would enjoy and things like that. So yeah, it's not at all uncommon. I have people sometimes reach out to me in a panic, being like, "Is this normal? Like I don't." It's like I don't want them anymore. Rest assured, that's normal, right? Because we no longer desire in that state. In the state of the wish fulfilled, there is no strong sense of desiring because you don't desire what you already have, if that makes sense. So yeah, yeah, it's normal. Thoughts on quantum jumping to a reality where people I created in revision exist in this present 3D. I created an amazing family in imagination and would enjoy seeing them in the present 3D. Aw, I love that Northwest Wind. Yeah, thoughts on is that possible? Is that what you mean? Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Absolutely, it's possible. If you can imagine it, it is a reality that we can experience, point blank. So, yes, absolutely, that is possible. And I guess if you're talking about like how to go about doing that, again, I will be releasing a video soon about going more into the hypnagogic state, lucid dreaming, and those kinds of things, because they all do go hand in hand with the worlds within worlds concept. Um, but yeah, absolutely, absolutely, we can. Yeah, I mean, when we say that as God all things are possible, we I mean that in every sense of the word. All things are possible. Yeah. Missy, when we do the list method, do we need to make a sat scene for everything we want to manifest from that list? For example, a free cup of coffee, etc. Good question. No, no, I wouldn't say that I mean, we can. If it was something that you wanted to do or you felt like it would be enjoyable, you can absolutely. But do we have to? No, no. And the reason that it's seemingly much easier for us to manifest those things is because we don't have attachment to any of those. Like it's not really going to make a wild difference in our life if we receive a free cup of coffee or not. So I mean, when I did the list method, I would literally just like as I was writing it down, I would just like take a brief moment to feel into that really quick. And just like feel myself with that, oh my God, it happened. Like that sort of thing. But there wasn't like I didn't do a whole bunch of like rituals with long sat scenes or anything like that. No. No. And how to handle fears of competition from other women. I work on self-concept, but I am triggered often. Yeah, I know that that one's a huge one. Fear of competition. Yeah. That's a big one for a lot of people. And for that one, I absolutely recommend building your faith and trust in everyone as you pushed out. Um, because that's how we're going to truly get to a place where we trust and believe that there is no competition. And but if we don't believe it, if we don't really believe it, it's going to feel very easy to slip back into that old fearful state of other people having some sort of advantage over us, people who are prettier than us, smarter than us, whatever. It's going to feel easy to go back to that. So I would specifically focus on building your trust and faith in everyone as you pushed out. And there's ways that we can go about doing that. I don't remember the name of the damn video, but I do talk about how we can just begin to observe like our natural assumptions about other people and our interactions with other people. Like we can start to see that they're mirroring whatever it is that we're assuming about them, right? And just sort of play with it, right? Like imagine something and imagine something with the intention that you're going to hear somebody else say it or confirm it. Yeah, yeah, just continue to build trust and faith that everyone is you pushed out, because with that, the fear of competition goes away completely. Because ultimately, there is nobody else out there who has power over you in your reality. It's not a real thing. I have been working on my self concept and manifesting my SP for some time already. Yesterday, my SP's friend called me instead. He has never called me before. Should I call it movement? Um, I mean, yeah, I would absolutely assume that this is indication that you're moving into a better state. Like the changes in self concept that are being made are going in the way that you want them to go. Yes, I would assume it to be a good thing. But do continue to go to the end. Do continue to imagine the ultimate outcome, whatever that is. You and SP are together and happy. Because what we don't want to do is take something as a sign, meaning that it's going to keep leading us to something. Because it doesn't really work like that. And that was the last video that I put out talks more about that and the whole birds before land thing. Um, yeah, everything that we see in the 3D is an outpicturing of something that we had impressed subconsciously. But do use it as a motivator and use it as something to help you continue to go back to the end. Go back to the end. Hi, I'm using your revision meditation and it's working. Yay! I'm going through more periods during the day feeling it's working. What can I do to keep building this new state during the day? Good question. Good question. Yeah, so what are some things that you can do to, I guess, keep that momentum going? Is what I I think that's a question. Yeah. And I mean, most importantly is again going back to that observation and again, not in a way like we don't need to be like obsessively looking for each thought that comes through our mind. We don't need to be policing our thoughts, but just gauging where we are, generally speaking, at different points during the day. And if we're noticing that perhaps we're starting to slide off, we're starting to notice more intrusive thoughts coming in, perhaps more doubts, anxiousness, um, you know, use that moment as soon as you capture that to just go within, go back within, and whatever you've been using as a revision scene, whatever you've been, I guess, picturing or doing, take a moment to like, remind yourself, right? It doesn't need to be like a whole ritual in and of itself. Just take a moment to tap back into that feeling that you experienced when you do the revision meditation, if that makes sense. And just, a couple of times throughout the day, especially if you notice yourself starting to feel more anxious. Yeah, it's frequenting the state. It's frequently occupying the state as much and often as possible. But yeah, I'm glad to hear that it's working for you. Yay! That's so good. Hey, what can we do to counteract ego backlash? Absolutely, John. Yeah. Yeah, ego backlash can absolutely suck. No joke. Um, well, and the first thing that we want to do, and the reason that I, try to bring this to everyone's attention is first thing is just being aware of what's going on is going to help tremendously. So we're not going to be as like sucked into it, and we're not going to be so taken aback from this sudden backlash. Perhaps we were doing really good. Perhaps we started noticing some change and shifting within us. Perhaps we started to have some momentum, and then boom, something happens, and it just seems to go crazy. Um, Recognizing that it's ego backlash alone, like that awareness alone is going to help keep us from the spiral of what the hell was that? What did I do wrong? I was doing so good. I just failed at this. Like all the things that we typically do because we are unaware of what's happening. So again, like just checking yourself and just reminding yourself, this is the old man. This is the old man. It's the old man not wanting to die. It's it's the ego doing its job essentially. And in that moment, if there are things that you do for anxiety, like focusing on alleviating any of that anxiety, any of that feeling of fear, doubt, frustration, like helping subside that first. Help yourself to subside that first. Like focus just first and foremost getting out of that state, even to a neutral state, even to um, a place that we're just okay. So that could be breathing exercises, that could be, tapping. There's different exercises and stretches that we can do to help alleviate anxiety and just help us to kind of like calm ourselves back down, first and foremost. So yeah, first recognizing the ego backlash for what it is, and then just taking a moment to help ourselves alleviate some of that stress, some of that anxiousness, shutting off the fight or flight response, basically. But yeah, yeah. And also know that when we do continue to go to the end, like that backlash lessens considerably, right? Like that it's not going to be that backlash every single time. It won't, I promise. Dude, crap. How to deal with sadness and missing my SP. Some days it's so hard, I would love to talk and experience in real, not just in my imagination. Then I go back to stay in the end, but some days it's hard. Yeah, yeah, it absolutely can be. And I'm sorry. Yes, it's gonna, yeah, some days are naturally gonna feel more challenging than others. That's, kind of going back to that ego backlash. It sounds a little bit like that. But how to deal with sadness and missing SP? First and foremost, if it feels like you need to cry, if it feels like you need to react, if it feels like you need to let it out, right? Do not suppress your emotions, even if they are emotions that are not ideal, even if they are emotions that we don't want or not lined up with what we desire. One of the worst things that we can be in the habit of doing is just trying to shove our emotions down and forget about it. So if you need a moment to just be sad, then okay, be sad, let it out. From there, like once you've been able to sort of process and release that emotion, it's going to be much easier and feel much lighter to then redirect ourselves back to the wish fulfilled, versus trying to like force ourselves to feel good when we feel like crap, if that makes sense. Um, yeah, just compassion and kindness for ourselves. Begin to, have some things that you can turn to in those days, like perhaps creating a playlist with some of your favorite videos, motivation videos, or just cute, adorable, happy things, I guess. Create a playlist on YouTube or Spotify, or just have things that we can turn to in those times where we're just in a funk, we don't feel that great, that just help us kind of, you know, boost ourselves up again to help to, you know, process and alleviate and move through those periods faster, and things like that. And just know that this is not always going to be. It's not always going to be this difficult. I do promise that. I do promise that. Because someday, what you're gonna, if you continue into this practice, what you're gonna naturally find is that your imagination and the 3D are one and the same. There is no separation. To us, it feels very different. Experiencing something in the 3D versus experiencing something in imagination feels very, very different. But that's not always going to be the case because they are one and the same. But yeah, yeah. Just be kind to yourself. If you need to cry, if you need to let it out, let it out. You can always come back and revise later. And do some things, have some things on standby for, if you ever need a boost in mood. Yeah. I've been having an issue with being happy during my times of imagination while living in the end, and then the 3D hits me very hard when I do have to go about my day. Then doubt sets in. What to do? Yeah. And similar answer to the last question that I just what I just talked about. Because yeah, initially it's going to feel, in imagination it's going to feel really good, but then when we come out of it and we're back in the 3D, um it's like everything just kind of resets to what it was before. Like we start to notice the crappiness of the 3D. And so it can be challenging to maintain that feeling that we had in imagination during our day to day, and that's normal. That is very, very normal. At first, we're getting more and more familiar with that feeling and imagination, and it may not at first carry over into the 3D or be lasting in the 3D all day. But if we continue to go there in imagination, if we continue to go back to that state of the wish fulfilled, it is going to naturally become your dominant state. It's going to naturally start to carry more and more in the 3D throughout the day to day. So that way, like you're not going to have this stark contrast. Um, living in imagination feels good, 3D feels bad. That it's going to erode that contrast. If then that's where the whole persistence part of this comes in. That's where continuing to go to the end, the frequent occupation of the state in imagination, it will start to have an effect on your day to day in the 3D. That will happen. Yeah. I've noticed severe gut reactions, unease, and resistance to manifesting money. How do I overcome this and push through without sabotaging myself? Thank you in advance. Oh, you are so welcome. Yeah. Yeah. And I know this area too can come with a lot of resistance. Um, just anything that we desire that is in contrast to what we believe and assume, there's going to feel like a lot of resistance to that. And the first thing that we want to do, if we're noticing that resistance, if it feels like there's a barrier between the imaginal act and where we are now, um, we don't want to try to like force it, right? Um, and that's something that that's kind of a something that we do at first that we learn quickly. Trying to like consciously push your way through resistance is gonna it's gonna lead to burnout. So the first thing that we want to do is just anything that is helpful with like alleviating that stress feeling. If it feels like the fight or flight reflex has been turned on and we're feeling anxious, we got that severe gut reaction. If we're noticing that, like, we want to turn to first and foremost like uh, reducing that anxiety, alleviating that anxiety, right? So again, deep breathing exercises, stretching, just moving about, going for a walk, things to help, shut off that fight flight response, shut off that stress hormone response, and help turn on the relax and restore response, right? And I do have a video coming out talking more about the nervous system and the role that the nervous system plays in manifestation because it does. So yeah, first, just helping ourselves to get to a place of calm, helping to alleviate that anxiety, that unease, that resistance. Um, and then if you're unable to imagine manifesting money itself, if the idea of more money is resistant, focus instead on the abundance all around us. Like we live in an abundant universe. We live with we're surrounded by so much abundance, but it's very difficult to see this if our perception has always been lack and not having enough. So I would give thanks for things such as just all of the abundance around me, like the abundance of leaves on the trees, the abundance of stars in the sky. I mean, there is so much. There is more than enough for everyone, and then some. And that was sort of a more general focal point that like sort of just to get my foot through the door and with the idea of manifesting more money because I also had a lot of resistance to the idea of manifesting more cash. Like that felt hard to do. So, alleviate that stress first and foremost, alleviate that anxiety, and then just focus more on the general conception of abundance, freedom, and more of those broad concepts that would naturally happen if you did in fact have more money, if that makes sense. Hello, Missy. I'm very happy to say that your wealth and abundance workshop is helping me a lot. Thank you, the meditation. Aw, thank you, Maria. I'm happy to hear that. Good. Good, good, good. Imagining random scenes while sleepy, one of the scenes moved by itself, like it was real, jolted me out of the scene ASAP. Yep. I'm not sure if it was a lucid dream or if I'm getting better at visualization. Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like you are getting better at the imagination muscle, like visualization. Mhm. So you were imagining a scene when you were sleepy and it, started to move around on its own without you consciously trying to do anything? Yeah. Yeah, that's normal. That's normal. Keep going, keep going. And that's why I said, like, there's a lot of power in those windows before bed and in the morning, like, when we're in that drowsy state, really powerful time to imagine. Can I make my manifestation appear in a specific time frame? For example, if I want SP to text me in 2 days, can I do that? If you're saying, "Is it possible?" Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, anything is possible. What we wanna remember, though, about timeframes and deadlines is that it this is sort of where, yes, it is possible, however, the caveat is we need to be able to trust it and drop it, right? One of the one of the walls that we keep running into with manifesting on a deadline is as that date gets closer and closer, we start to feel more and more anxious. We are continuing to look at the lack of not having it. So it can feel a bit like a catch-22. If you're noticing that kind of feeling, if you're noticing like growing anxiety as you inch closer to the date or time, I would recommend just dropping it. Just dropping it because it's never going to be helpful for us if we're continuing to be reminded of what we don't have, and if we're continuing to bring into awareness the lack of what we want. if that makes sense. So it is absolutely possible. I mean, anything is possible. But to the degree in which we can keep the faith and just, drop it, trust that it's gonna happen, yeah. Yeah, that's a little different entirely. Hi, Missy. When I imagine at night, it feels really natural and like it could actually happen, but it still feels like just a possibility. How do I go from strong possibility to no, really, I am it now? Continuing to go there. Continuing to strengthen that. What we're doing in imagination is we are becoming more and more familiar with that outcome. So until it feels certain to you, that's why we continue to go there. That's why we continue to experience it in imagination. Because by doing so, you are subconsciously becoming more and more familiar with this hypothetical scenario that perhaps wasn't real before, but now is becoming more and more real. Because the subconscious mind can't tell the difference between something that's an imaginal act and something that's happening in the 3D. It just can't. So continuing to go to that state and imagination, it will go from feeling like a possibility to I'm here now. Yeah. One day I would like to be a teacher and coach like, "Aw, when did you know you were ready to start?" Good question. When I was ready to start coaching, it happened it happened naturally. It was something I didn't even consciously plan to do. It started with me, like, coaching, for lack of better words, some close friends around me, and when they started to notice themselves feel better and notice the changes in their lives, and they told their friends, and it sort of started to snowball. And that's around the same time I decided to start my YouTube channel. Um, so yeah, I didn't have like a definitive like this is now. I didn't have that stark contrast. Like, okay, now I'm ready. It really did organically unfold. Yeah, but I mean, either way, like, you will know, it will be a knowing. It will be a knowing. It'll just feel like the most natural thing in the world to do. When it comes to people showing up differently in your reality, but others around say otherwise, is it because we still have a dominant belief deep down about said people? When it comes to so, uh, if I'm understanding the question correctly, when it comes to people showing up differently, but others say otherwise, yeah, other people show up in our reality based on what we believe and assume, basically. Um, if we're talking more often than not, yeah, it's based on the beliefs and assumptions that we have about these specific people or people in general. Like if we have a general belief that, people can't be trusted, people are always looking up for number one, whatever it might be, yeah, you'll absolutely see that reflected. So that's why I say, like, when it comes to other people and really when it comes to everything in the 3D, take it as feedback. How other people are showing up is letting us know what state we're occupying, what are the beliefs and assumptions. Like, where have we been dwelling in imagination as of late? That will tell us everything. Yeah. How to deal with extreme opposite movement even when affirming? Good question. So if you're noticing the opposite happening around you despite the fact that you're affirming, more importantly than the affirmations, like what are you believing? Like what is your mental diet in the day to day? What are the natural assumptions and reactions that are coming up for you? Because that is what we see expressed in the 3D. So if you're noticing opposite movement in the 3D, it points to double-mindedness within ourselves. Like we may be saying one thing, but imagining and believing another. Um, so to combat that, I would perhaps play around with different imaginal acts or ways in which you can imagine the outcome that you desire in a way that begins to resonate with you. If the affirmations don't, and again, if your affirmations are resonating, if they do feel believable, if they feel real, and they are helping, then perhaps in addition, just make sure to check your mental diet. Be sure to see where you are in consciousness in the day to day, and if you're noticing that if your thoughts and reactions are opposite of what you desire, then yeah, just play around with how you imagine, and begin to imagine differently. I know it can be frustrating. I know. I was typing a question and hearing about cats, and when I scroll back looking for the cats, where are they? I want to see. The cats are upstairs. We got a designated spot. It's uh yeah, we got a designated room. It's a big room where they got space to run around and do their thing and baby gate and all that. But I am not waking them up. No. Let them sleep. Um, Hello, Chi-chan. Hi. When I hear coaches say tell a different story, what does that mean? Is that scripting, and do we reread and record that new story? Good question. I mean, you you can, um, like, literally, do we write a new story for ourselves? I mean, that's one way to that's one way to do it. You could, but when we say to change the story or create a new story, it does mean just that. Like, do not take aspects of the old story, like the old creations, the old beliefs, the old all of the things that we no longer desire and that we don't want to continue to experience, that needs to be changed. That narrative needs to be changed. And so like you can absolutely, like a screenwriter, rewrite that story if you want. It's not required. You certainly don't have to. Um, but yeah, it just means we do not want to continue to hold in consciousness the things that created what we don't want, right? Like me keeping the assumption that, SP doesn't love me, they're going to move on without me, I can't trust them, or they like all the old crap is never going to serve us, right? All of the history and things that happened, we got to do away with all that. All that. I'm in a serious relationship with my SP, but she is ethically non-monogamous and I'm not. How would I manifest her being monogamous with me if changing the 3D is more about changing self than others? Good question. Good question. So when we say there's no one to change but self, it's that yes, you are seeing a different state. You're seeing this other person in a different light, right? Um, so in your example, you would start by knowing and understanding that with creation being finished, all states of consciousness already exist right here and now. Everything's already done. So there's already a version of your SP that has the desire, as you do, to be monogamous. That already exists. So what you're doing is in imagination, you are going there and you are asking yourself, like, what would that look like? What would that feel like? You know, constructing a conversation, for example, where you're hearing SP tell you that, she only has the desire to be with you. She no longer has the desire, does not have the desire to be with anyone else, things like that. So we're effectively just imagining from that new state of consciousness. So we're not trying to like cast a magic spell and get them to change, but it's a change in how we are imagining. It's a change in how we are imagining them. if that makes sense. I'm manifesting a lottery win, and I usually deposit $10 to the app I use, but I accidentally oh, geez. Now my bank account is up. Oh no. Oh no. You accidentally deposited way more than you intended. First course of action, revision. Revision, revision, revision. If anytime something happens in the 3D that is not ideal, like whether it was, we made a mistake or something outside of us just showed up and it's crap, first thing we want to do is revise it. Revise it. See that, go back and imagine that, this was $10, that I only put $10 down, that's all I did, change it, basically. Change the memory. I know how easy it is to panic when the 3D shows us these kinds of things. First course of action is revise, and continue to go back to that revised act. Continue to go back to that revised act. Like, miracles will take place. We continue to hold firm in that new assumption that that revised act, that is what happened. Hold steadfast onto that. Yeah. What is your opinion on why people give up manifesting their SPs even though it's proven to be possible? Um, a lot of it comes down to how we approach and understand the law. Um, for a lot of people, manifesting an SP, initially, a lot of the first things that are taught, I'm not saying this definitively, but for a lot of people, you know, we're trying to manifest. We're trying to force through conscious effort a change to happen in the 3D, continuing to look to the 3D for evidence of it working, and essentially, yeah, burnout happens. Um, because if we're continuing to try through force to make something happen to the outside, that's like changing. It's like trying to change the mirror manually without changing ourself first, right? The reflection in the mirror will change once we change. Um, and if we continue to try through force and through action and all of that, it can lead to burnout. Yeah, it can absolutely lead to burnout. And that's why I try to tell people, if you notice if you're feeling exhausted, if you're feeling stressed, if you feel like you're on the verge of burning out, take a break. Take a break. Take care. It has to be putting yourself first and foremost. Like, that cannot ever be an exception to that. Like, we have to put ourselves, our health, our well-being, our mental well-being, physical well-being, we have to put that first. No exceptions. So, yeah. I hope that answered the question. Hi, Missy. When you manifested something you wanted, how did you get into your imaginal act without trying to get it? And how did you stop wanting in 3D when it's not in your experience yet? Good question. So, when there's something that I wanted really bad, how did I imagine it without trying to get it? Well, so that's the thing. What inevitably everyone, on this journey, what you're going to understand more and more, what you're going to come to realize is that imagination and the 3D, there is no difference. Whatever difference is, it's perceived to be different. In the imagination, it may not feel as strong, it may not feel as real, as solid, and that's due to our conditioning. We grew up thinking that imagination was all make believe, it's all fairy tales, and that the 3D is the real world. Um, it's not. It's not. And the more that we continue to exercise the imagination, it truly is like a muscle in the sense that the more that we exercise our imagination, the more and more real everything is going to seem until you become like fully in like, what's the word I'm looking for? Fully immersed in the imaginal act. And it's going to feel very real when you do so. But it may take some practice exercising that imagination before we get to that place. Um, yeah, because you can give yourself the experience that you desire in imagination, and it can feel just as real as if we were having that experience in the 3D. It, no difference, no difference. And that's what I do. That's how I go about this because in my imagination, I can create a the feeling of so solidly real, like there is no difference. And then when I come out of it, I'm satisfied because I had that experience, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. But again, this is why we're practicing exercising this imagination muscle. We're practicing imagining ourselves experiencing what we want to experience. There are no limitations to what we can experience in imagination. Like all of the limitations of the 3D don't exist in imagination. We can go anywhere. We can do anything. None of it matters. And if we continue to do so, it's going to strengthen to the point where if you want to have ice cream, you can go into your imagination right now and have the most delicious ice cream sundae that you've ever had in your entire life. And you're going to come out of that like, damn, that was awesome. That was amazing. And go about your day. So yeah, we're just getting familiar for that though. Like we have gone years, not decades, of thinking that the 3D is the real world. Imagination is all fake. It's not real. We've had it completely backwards. So we're just exercising that. That's all. Because inevitably we'll find that that's the furthest thing from the truth. Imagination is the only reality. And same thing for your question, Izzy Boo. Uh, yeah, I'd give a same answer. How to deal with the 3D when there's lots of things I want to buy, but 3D bank account says nope. Give yourself that experience in imagination. If you want to go buy that brand new car, drive it. Drive it. Put yourself in the driver's seat. Experience that. What does it feel like? What does it feel like? You want that beautiful new dress? Put it on in imagination. See yourself in the mirror. What does that look like? What does that feel like? Like there are zero limitations to what we can imagine. Anything that we want in the 3D, we can give ourselves the experience of it in imagination. Period. And the more that we continue to do so, the more and more real it's going to feel. That is really the entire point of what we're doing. Motivational quest. How can I manifest height? Yes, yeah, absolutely. You can change any sort of physical appearance that you want to change, height, weight, anything like that. It is absolutely possible. Again, going back to there's already a version of you that exists that is your desired height. So what would that be like? What would that feel like? And continue to go there. Maybe a silly question, but when you say time's not real, you have to kind of be pointing to 3D existence not being real because me watching my kids grow in the 3D shows time is real here. Yeah, time is so the 3D is bound by linear time. The 3D is bound by linear time. That is true. But in 4D in imagination, it is not. And that's what I mean by time is not real. Creation is finished and we can experience anything in imagination right now, regardless of time, distance, none of that matters in imagination. So yeah, the 3D world is yeah, following the rules of linear time. Um, but that ultimately doesn't matter because in imagination we can experience it right now. And in fact, that's how we select that reality. That's how we select, like, that's the thing I want to experience. I'm going to experience it now, and that's when a bridge unfolds to naturally get you from where you are now to where you want to be. And that's why we have bridges of events that unfold. And why Neville would say, like, everything happens at the appointed hour. He's talking to the fact that the 3D is bound by linear time, which is why things happen in a series of events here. But if we just continue to stick to that place in imagination that we desire to experience, we're going to find a series of events happen that take us from here now to where we want to be. I hope that makes sense. Could we have a hidden subconscious fear of actually getting our manifestation? Because I think there's some fear there for me of, could I handle it? Yeah, I think that's a real thing. Yeah. Having a fear of actually getting our manifestation. Yeah. Yeah, that's certainly real. That's certainly real. I mean, we can change that. We can begin to recondition that fear. Absolutely. But I would say 100%. That's a fear that a lot of people have. Like, if I got my manifestation, then what? Would I be able to handle it? Would I be able to keep it around? That sort of thing? Yeah. Yeah. But again, you can always change it. I don't really have a question this week, but I love being here because I learned so much. My mom won 400 pounds on the premium bonds by visualizing. Yes. Yes. Fantastic. That's so awesome to hear, Rachel. Oh, sorry, April. I was reading somebody's name, Rachel, and yeah, April. Thank you for sharing, April. That is awesome. Yep. David, you get it. You get it. We don't really live in time, odd as it sounds. We live in states. Yep. Since all realities exist at the same time, and if we would simply expect that we are in our desired reality, would that be a way we can instantly experience our desire since manifesting is instant? So, I'm trying to make sure I understand the question. Yeah. So, could we instantly experience a shift in the 3D if we are in imagination living in the end? Is what I mean, is that possible? Technically speaking, yes. Yeah, and anything is possible. Anything is possible. Um, to the degree that we can have the conviction is the key. Because again, going back to our conditioning of 3D time, and being incredibly conditioned to that idea that things happen in series of events, it's going to feel way more natural to expect something to happen first. Like, we're expecting things to happen in the series of events, right? It's going to feel incredibly unnatural to imagine closing your eyes, opening your eyes, and like teleporting to some other place entirely in the 3D. That's going to feel difficult for most people to imagine being possible. Um, but if it you're asking if it is possible, yeah, 100%. And I made a video talking more about that, about instant manifestation. I forget what it was titled. I think if you type in the search bar Missy Renee instant manifestation, it should pop up. But the thumbnail says the appointed hour is now. I go a lot more into detail about instant manifestation in that video. So check it out if you haven't seen it. Lost my spot. The other day, I was visualizing and was jolted up because it felt so real and was just saying, "No effing way," happy over and over. I can't get that feeling back, though. Is that one moment all it takes? Yeah, yeah. That's all. Yes, yeah. You were visualizing and you were jolted because it felt so real? Mhm, mhm. Yeah, yeah, and trying to go back there through, conscious effort by means of conscious effort is yeah, probably gonna feel incredibly difficult to do. Yeah, that's all it takes is that one moment. That one as soon as we feel it real, that seed is planted. Uh-huh. Do you think one day that everyone on Earth will come to know how powerful they are? I hope that reality comes to fruition. I absolutely believe that. 100%. Everybody on Earth will come to know how powerful they are. In fact, that's God's promise to us. And that's what Neville was referring to as the promise. It's God's promise that one day everybody will awaken to who they truly are. That we're not this garment of flesh and blood and limitation. That's not who we truly are. Yeah. Everybody. Yeah. Related to last week's question, I already told my SP the reason why I distanced myself and the list of reasons why I got upset with her. She's now ignoring me. Any advice on how to revise? So how to revise how to revise a conversation that you had with SP? Like it sounds like so you had confronted SP, told her the reasons why you distanced yourself and she got upset. How do you go about revising that? Um, well, imagine how many ways the conversation could have gone different, or even go back to if there was a certain event that happened where you got upset, you got frustrated, like in the first place. Um, I guess you can go back and revise whatever may have happened that caused you to want to distance yourself. If that makes sense, I hope that's making sense. Um, but yeah, I would revise whatever may have happened that began this feeling of distance and upset and things like that. Hope that makes sense. I'm in a long distance relationship, different continents. What techniques to manifest us being together? Um, any technique that resonates with you. Uh, there's no like best technique for everybody. Like a one size fit all approach. Everybody is going to be different, depending on what resonates and what is easier to feel into. So, for you, that could be affirmations. It could be visualization. It could be inner talking and inner conversations. But whatever technique helps you to best capture the feeling of being back together with your SP, that's that's the one. That's the one. 100,000%. Thank you, David. Have a wonderful week yourself. All right. I got time for maybe one or two more questions. Oh. Hello, Bessie. Well, my SB ghosted me for a while. The techniques used to work. He usually texted me back within days, but now all the techniques won't work anymore. He still doesn't text back. Any suggestions? Yeah. I mean, try to play around with different things if that's the case. If the techniques are not working anymore, if you're noticing a lot of resistance or anything like that, play around with different ways to imagine. Whatever that looks like. Whatever that looks like. Yeah, 'cause it's not the techniques that manifest. It's never the technique itself that makes the manifestation happen. It's how the technique makes us feel. It's the aid in feeling into what we desire, if that makes sense. So, if what you had been doing perhaps isn't working anymore, like, do feel free to play around with different things that do. Like, play around with different techniques and different ways that you can better capture the feeling of being back in contact and being back together, living in the end. Absolutely. I will be updating emails this afternoon. Thank you, Rose. Have a good rest of your afternoon. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I am now eating ice cream in my imagination. Good. Missy, at night I feel I'm in high energy and I think my manifestation will be here any moment. But then the next morning to evening, it is frustrating to see the 3D hitting back. How to deal? Yeah. Yeah, so how do we deal with the fact that in imagination it feels one way and the 3D is showing another? Yeah, and I touched on this similar question earlier. Initially, there's gonna feel like there's a contrast between the 3D and imagination. That is normal because of how conditioned we are to the 3D and that being the real world and the imagination being not real and being make believe. Initially, it's gonna feel we're gonna have a much stronger gravitation towards the 3D and the feeling of realness for that. 100%. But as we continue to imagine, like because again, the imagination is very much like a muscle that we exercise, the more that we do that, the more it is going to start to feel more and more like the real thing, the real thing. I'd say that, right? It's gonna start to feel more and more natural, and it's gonna start to you're gonna notice that shift in how you feel in the day to day. Like, even if the 3D around you hasn't changed, you're not going to be as respondent to it. You're not gonna be as attached to it. And it really is that idea of detachment, right? Like, as we continue to strengthen that imagination muscle, you're gonna start to realize more and more that imagination is the only reality. It truly is. And you can have a feeling so intense and so strong in imagination, and it feels so real that that is going to carry over, so to speak. Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, we gotta continue. Can you pay for someone else to help manifest for you when you are feeling stuck? I have seen this service advertised. Uh, mm, so it may be helpful in a lot of ways if we have the knowing or the reassurance that somebody is imagining for us, somebody is imagining something lovely for us. It may feel like it just may help to bring us some comfort knowing that, but in truth, no one outside of you can manifest for you. In your reality, it is whatever you are assuming, whatever you are believing to be true. It's what so we don't wanna give it a pass to where, "Oh, well, somebody else is thinking something lovely, so I can just continue to spend all day dwelling in what I don't want." Right? Like, if that makes sense? We don't wanna do that. We don't wanna do that. But if, we can always ask somebody, like, if there's anybody that we know in this community or somebody, um, if it's a friend in real life in the 3D or if it's somebody in this community, just, imagine something lovely for me if you could. This is ultimately where I desire to be. Then that can help us feel more comforted and relieved, and just feel good knowing that there's somebody imagining lovely things for us. But we don't want to use that as a ways to just continue to fixate on the old story, if that makes sense. Yeah. And I don't know how I feel about paying for a service where someone else is manifesting for you because in your reality, you are ultimately the operant power. Yeah, nobody else has like ultimate authority over you in your reality. So, uh, absolutely, absolutely. And on that note, you guys, I do have to get going, unfortunately, but this has been so much fun. I enjoy all of you so much. Thank you for being here. Next week, we'll resume our normal times on Sundays. Thank you for your patience for today. I know it was a bit of a mix up, but um, love you all so much. Sincerely, enjoy the rest of your weekend. Have a fantastic rest of your day. Blessings to each and every one of you. And I will see you next week. Bye, guys.